Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thanks for joining us today. I know we're probably the only thing standing in between you and the lunch break. And as someone who gets hangry really fast, I know that's not an ideal time. So, in the spirit of Delivery Hero, we will get this to you fast, fresh, and with minimal wait time. Welcome to Retail Media Scaling Problem and how Delivery Hero is solving it with Pentaleap. We will explore the hurdles and the strategies that drive retail media growth and how you can tackle them head on. I'm Emma Helsloot. I'm the sales director of EMEA for Pentaleap. I'm here together with Baradwaaj, who is the director of advertising products at Delivery Hero. And Baradwaaj and I met, I think, half a year ago. And last winter, a couple of months ago, we were sitting together in a bar discussing the terms of our partnership. And I was asking Baradwaaj more questions about the retail media sector and his vision on it. And he shared so many valuable insights that I decided to ask him to join me on stage today. So unfortunately, we're not at a bar, but it will be a Q&A format where where he can share his vision on retail media with all of you. A very quick intro first about Pentaleap, and then let Baradwaaj do the talking. With Pentaleap, we have developed a retail media ad server that is transforming the results of retailers that struggle with underperforming and irrelevant ads. And we help retailers scale on-site monetization by improving click-through rates and conversions for their sponsored ads. So Delivery Hero has been on the forefront of transforming digital shopper experience, and Barad's now testing with Pentaleap. So Barad, maybe you can start telling by who you are and how you ended up in retail media.
Hey guys, yes, I think the mic works. Nice to meet you all. Quickly about myself. I've spent far too long in advertising. The journey started about a decade ago when I founded a company in the social commerce space, solving for affiliate and influencer marketing. Post that, I worked for a few years at this company called InMobi, leading the product and tech teams, building full stack advertising solutions for the China and Asia business. And about 3 years back, I decided to join Delivery Hero. I think the biggest pull for me was that retail advertising was and probably still is one of the hottest topics, and I wanted to be part of the journey, learn and contribute. And DH was that perfect opportunity, right, where I could build advertising solutions for its various entities across diverse geographies. So here I am today. Nice to meet you all, and good to speak on this topic today. Over to you.
Yeah, we're going to jump to the first topic. That's the challenge that's happening scaling retail media networks, because scaling retail media networks isn't a small task. And especially for traditional retailers or quick commerce who may not have advertising in their DNA. So from your perspective, what have been the biggest hurdles to tackle?
In terms of hurdles, I would broadly put it into two buckets, right? One around the organizational challenges that retailers and quick commerce companies have had, and the other is more around the technology side of things. On the first part, I mean, retail media is not a new concept. It's been around for a while, right? But I think it's seen very unprecedented growth in the last few years. While the space itself has been evolving quite rapidly, what we've generally noticed is the retailers don't evolve from an organization standpoint as quickly. For instance, what we've seen the existing organization expand to take new scope, right? For instance, you have category managers who double hat between driving category growth and also advertising sales. While this might seem in the short term as an incremental growth, but what it does in the mid and long term is it's very detrimental in terms of how you set up foundations for retail advertising. Taking the same example of category managers, what we've seen is that it leads to a conflict of interest, right? Like between how do you balance your commercial objectives and your advertising objectives. What we've seen in majority of the cases is this leads to undercutting of media value. So then I think the key questions for quick commerce companies and retailers to answer in this is what does it take to have a successful ad sales organization, both in terms of resourcing, in terms of skill sets, in terms of sales enablement, in terms of having the right processes. and even probably taking a decision of do you outsource ad sales, right? So
Yeah.
I think sort of becomes the crux of what you need to answer on the organization perspective. The second is the technology part, right? Like I think a lot of this growth in retail media is also fueled by CPGs and who are known to be very sophisticated advertisers. So I think things like having access to biddable media, things like real-time reporting, incrementality become sort of table stake in terms of a solution offering that CPGs expect. So this again brings the question of how do retailers provide a mature advertising
Yeah.
solution for CPGs in a short time frame, right? What is the strategy for technology? Do you build it in-house? What is the resourcing that's required? Do you outsource? Do you partner? Who do you partner with? And
Yeah.
what do you partner for? So I think these become again very important questions from a technology standpoint. And for me, I think there's a long list, right? But I think if I need to talk about what do you need as foundations for building a sustainable retail advertising
Yeah.
business, I would think these are the top two that anybody needs to address.
And very good points. And the topic on the CPG's needs, we will touch upon that later as well. But we see that a lot. We heard a lot from retailers, like the tech can be in place to scale your on-site retail media. We know it because we built it, but it's really hard to get your organizational structure in place if advertising wasn't in your DNA already. Moving on to the next question, the paid versus the organic trade-off. And I think everyone here in this room, we're at an e-commerce conference, knows the importance of the customer experience. And that's the most important thing. And most forward-thinking retailers, they aspire to have as little as possible distinction between the paid and organic results. So how do you do that? How do you strike the balance between paid and organic results?
Yeah, I mean, I think the right approach is not even considering it as a trade-off, right? I think the way that we look at it from a DH perspective is how do both work together to drive better discoverability on the platform. I mean, I think we still started off at a point where we ensured that advertising doesn't have a negative impact on the user journeys. But we've come a long way from there to sort of getting to a situation where we are able to now measure how does advertising work in conjunction to organic media to drive better user discoverability. And I think we've done a few things that have worked for us. I think the first and foremost is we have a very exhaustive consumer journey that's mapped with the various paid and organic touch points along the user journey. We also have very clearly defined KPIs that we want to measure for each of the touch points so that we are able to maintain guardrails and continuously keep pushing for better user experience. We also have a very exhaustively defined advertising guideline, which ensures that, across various entities that we operate in, the advertising experience is standard and seamless for the user, right? And lastly, we also sort of over-index on experimentation. So we do have a lot of investment made into A/B frameworks and measurability. And before we launch any feature, let it be organic or paid, it goes through rigorous experimentation with proper guardrails and success metrics defined before it is being rolled out. And we do constant holdout groups, which ensures that you're always measuring new releases against a baseline so that it then sort of becomes a moving target on consumer experience. So these are something that have enabled the movement towards a better joint user experience across the media. But I mean, I think it's still a long way ahead, right? I think our end vision or direction is to move more towards a fluid layout where, I mean, for instance, today the advertising is still on specific slots, right? We do first 3 slots for search, we do specific placements for banners. In an ideal world, where we want to get to is to personalize this at a user level. Like every user sees a layout that is specific to him or her, which then drives better user experience. We're still early in days for this journey, but this is the potential direction that we're heading towards in terms of user experience.
And that's something we're working on together, because retail media isn't just about ads, it's also for the experiences, unifying the retail and the media experience. And if your ads or if your ad tech disrupts the customer experience, you're setting yourself up for failure. But the good news is that retail media doesn't have to destroy your core business. And we see retailers who are leading in the field are those who invest in a retail media technology that can unify the core business, the organic results, and the media business, so the media advertisements. And then moving towards our next topic, delivering relevant ads and scaling fill rates and programmatic. It's a hot topic in the industry because one of the challenges that retail media networks face is increasing the number of ad slots while maintaining the relevancy and a high fill rate and a great ad load. So what strategies do you think are most effective for increasing the ad load and the fill rate while maintaining that relevancy?
It's a two-part question. Right? So I think I'll break it into two parts. One is how do we ensure better ad quality through relevancy? The second part would be more about how do we maximize fill rates while maintaining or improving the ad quality, right? I think for the first part, I think the biggest advantage of retail networks is the context that we hold, right? So I think whenever we serve an ad to a user, we know the exact context. So at what stage of journey is the user at, what search term has the user searched for, what category is the user browsing. So I think at a very foundational level, this adds a lot of context for us already to, figure out what is the best ad to show to the user. But to layer on top of this, we also have access to a lot of consented first-party data. So what this also helps us do is to create machine learning models to understand the affinity of users to brands and products. So then this adds another layer of personalization on top of the context that already exists within retail networks, right? Now, this is on the first part of how do we drive better ad quality and relevant ads. And I think there are obviously other aspects that go along with ad quality as well. Things like, do we have the right content? Is there availability of the product? And I think a whole lot of supporting levers. But I think on the technology front, there is a lot of machine learning investment that goes into it. Now, for the second part of how do you scale fill rate while maintaining quality, right? So I think today, and for obvious reasons, our biggest and most important channel of demand is through direct sales. But factually, we've seen, and historically we've seen as well, direct sales does not necessarily always bring in the economies of scale, right? This is not going to make you hit above the 70% fill rate that everybody wishes for. And this is, possibly where Pentaleap and, the third-party DSP integrations come in. What we aim to do through this is gain access programmatically to endemic demand that we don't have access through from, the direct sales channels. And this has sort of a domino effect, right? So one, it helps us, build better fill rates on the platform. Two, this also brings in more candidates for the relevancy to choose from, right? I mean, for any ML model, as long as there is more candidature and more data, the model is more effective. So this sort of has a dual effect where it also improves how you customize the ads for users. At the same time, it also helps us scale the fill rates on the platform. That's basically how directionally we are approaching this from a Delivery Hero perspective.
Yeah, really, really cool insights, I think, for everyone to hear about this strategy. And it's the same as what we've seen with the sponsored products benchmark report we just published. It's those who show sponsored products at every page load, and also those who show more sponsored products per page. Those are winning. And retailers who are maybe in this room or who are hearing this currently seeing disappointing results for the sponsored products. They may find it hard to believe that some retailers, for example, Staples, show 16 sponsored products ads while maintaining relevancy and fill rates. So the key is really to partner with the tech vendor who allows you to scale up your inventory while maintaining the relevancy for your sponsored ads. And then, indeed, you can connect to more demand sources, and then you're really scaling your on-site retail media network. And I think we have time for more, to touch upon a bit more about the CPG's needs. You just mentioned it. CPG brands are a critical partner for any retail media network. So from your perspective, what attracts the CPG to invest in your retail media network?
I think it's a very long list. Maybe I'll keep it to the top three, right? I think first and foremost, the biggest advantage of a retail media network is the advertisements sit right on the transaction path, right? So what this means for a CPG is one, the effectiveness of the advertising is very high in terms of the buying behavior. Two, given that the transactions and the advertisements happen on the same platform, there is a lot more accuracy to the attribution models, to the ROAS, to the incrementality that you bring to the table for CPGs to measure the campaign effectiveness, right? So this then gives a CPG a way to directly influence buying behavior and also have a very good measure of how this is driving their sales and incrementality through ads. But then if you take a step back, advertising is not just advertising in a retail network, right? I mean, there are a lot of supporting factors. And I think we touched upon this a little earlier when we talked about ad quality. Now, for a campaign to be successful, there are various other supporting factors. For instance, ensuring you have the right stocks in the stores that doing advertising, ensuring you have the right content quality for the ads that you're showing, even basic things like do you have the right pictures, do you have the right product metadata, ensuring it's coupled with discounts and promotions to then sort of have exponential effect on the advertising campaign. So the advantage that retail networks offer CPGs is to have a holistic 360 view on the campaigns they run, right? I think this is one super big differential that retail networks bring in. The other aspect I would say is about data, right? So I think the data that retail networks possess in terms of consumer behavior is very valuable to drive data-driven media decisions for CPGs, right? For instance, it gives them a view of what are their sales in countries, in categories, who are the users who are buying. So potentially what then this helps CPGs drive is what products to promote through what channels for what audiences. And thereby it sort of brings direction to the investments that CPG make on retail networks, right? The third one, I would say, CPGs are not just about trade objectives, right? I think there is a very large amount that is also spent on upper funnel initiatives through display. And this is again where retail networks play a very pivotal role. I think one in the form of in-app media. Uh, the retail networks provide CPGs with the ability to target highly relevant and contextual audience to communicate their brand narratives. CPGs also run a lot of campaigns off platform, right? And in this scenario, again, they require to redirect the traffic to a landing page in a transacting platform. And this is again where retail networks play a crucial role in terms of, having the ability to provide custom landing pages for brands, to be able to redirect the off-platform traffic into the apps and then provide a seamless experience. And also it brings in a layer of measurability, right? Because today what we see, it's a very fragmented ecosystem. So CPGs run campaigns off platform, they run campaigns in app, but the connection between the two is sort of missing. So where again the key differentiation comes in is how are you able to provide an end-to-end view across off platform and in-app campaigns, right? And then sort of provide what is the end-to-end uplift that the campaign from the off-platform channel and the campaign on the in-app channel is driving together. So in some sense, it's sort of inching towards more of a connected ecosystem where you're able to provide cross-channel abilities for both reporting, targeting, and campaign execution. Yeah. So in my point of view, I think these would be probably the top three that I would think that a CPG would value the most from retail networks.
And I think these are all a hot topic or challenges many retail media networks face, and it's not so easy to solve, and the whole industry is working on this. And I really agree. And I just wanted to emphasize, if your retail media network isn't delivering incremental results, the CPG brands will spend their budgets elsewhere. So our benchmark for sponsored products is the performance of organic products. And we know that's a very high benchmark, but yeah, we know it can be done. So the best retail media networks really make it effortless for brands to spend and invest and make every dollar count for what they spend with the retail media network. So if your sponsored products aren't performing as good as your organic products on your website, you may want to consider upgrading your ad server. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have after this presentation. And I think we will move forward to the Q&A, where we do have some time for questions from the audience.
Yeah. Hi there. Thank you very much. Have you considered non-endemic advertising, so branching out further using first-party data?
We do have a non-endemic revenue stream as well, but that's not a very high area of focus today. Because I think for us, consumer experience is paramount, right? And typically when you get into non-endemic, it changes the context of the user, which means there are only limited spaces in the consumer journey you can actually put non-endemic ads. Right now, our biggest focus is in terms of scaling our restaurant and QC business, and we sort of prefer scenarios of upsell between food and QC than non-endemic. So even though we do have the capability and we do have a revenue stream today, it's not the highest focus for us from the edge.
Anyone else?
Oh.
So thank you both, first of all, for this exciting session. A quick question. So I think somewhere midway we discussed the importance of maintaining quality while scaling. And at the end, Emma, you mentioned that connecting demand source is an important part of that path that we maybe did not have the chance to examine. Can you guys elaborate a little bit on that? So from your view, how do you go on the other side beyond like the retailer, the retail media network view on how do you successfully and scalably, especially with a reach of over 70 countries and so many kind of websites, so to speak, to get the relevant brands, to get the relevant partners to advertise on your platform?
I think this should be a discussion and not a question. But yeah, no, I think, maybe I'll go first and then you can add. I think what we're seeing, I think what has been a bigger limitation so far for retail networks to extend to third-party DSP is the entire context you're referring to, right? For you to be able to serve ads, you need to have an understanding of what the catalog looks like for serving. But what we're seeing is now there is an increase in terms of DSPs that actually start to support this. Like Sky is an example, and I think you guys are working towards that. So the ability to sort of understand the retail catalog and then being able to understand the context of the ad request and then having the ability to sort of serve the right ads sort of solves already half the problem, right? But then once the third-party DSP and the retail DSP speak the same language, then it's also easy for us to layer in our personalization on top of it. So I think two parts, right? One, I think we are able to get access to ads that we don't have access to. Now, what it does from a technical perspective is I have more candidates for the same ad request, right? So for a user, even though I might have the best in-class machine learning algorithm, but if I don't have ads, it doesn't make sense, right? So what it does provide is now, instead of 2 competing candidates, I might have 4 competing candidates, and I can then apply a layer of personalization that is able to drive much better performance compared to before, right? This is basically the shift that I'm seeing. I don't think we're anywhere close to this being a very seamless solution yet. I think it would take a lot of effort for companies like Delivery Hero and companies like Sky to work it out. But this is where I think directionally we would be heading towards.
Thank you.
Anything to add, Emma?
I think there was 2 more questions here.
I was wondering regarding meeting CPG's needs. You said that one thing is the attribution model, that there's more trust in it and so on. Could you maybe have a few words about how do you feel, or to what extent do you think the reporting you're delivering to the different CPGs is one standard format already, or how the expectations of CPGs to what you need to deliver varies by context?
I think we look to follow IAB standards as much as possible, right? Both in terms of tracking and attribution. So anything to do with how do you measure an impression, 50% view rate for 1 second click, and attribution, in-session attribution. So we look to sort of standardize this. The reason what I also meant in terms of why this is far more accurate is, for instance, let's take the example of running a campaign on Meta, right? You run a campaign in Meta, at the end of the day, the transaction happens on another platform, right? So I think here, what you don't really measure is the multi-touch point attribution. So you don't factor in for what is already happening within the in-app to drive this conversion versus what does Facebook do. So the challenge is basically that there is a lot of cannibalization effect that comes in between when you run an off-platform campaign and then you're trying to attribute an in-app transaction. And these layers are removed naturally when you run an in-app campaign, right? So then I think once we do that and once we sort of conform to the IAB specs, it becomes a lot more reliable for CPGs to consume this data. But on top of this, there's also a lot of third-party measurement that happens, right? I mean, I think we still need to support partners like Double Verify and Moat, which would be then used as the baseline to measure whether our systems are conforming to the standards. So it's essentially not just our reporting data, but it's also going to be data that CPG sees from a Double Verify and a Moat that they're able to validate is it the actual campaign performance that is being delivered that is shown on the ad platform that we have. So that's basically how it's sort of happening now. And I think as things change, and I think as multi-touch point and few other attribution models also start playing a bigger role, I think this space would also evolve a bit more.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And while you can sell your inventory on a programmatic way, I think there's still a strong need these days to have your solid media sales organization if you want to scale it and make it a success. Do you see a trend that retailers that are too small, they team up as a kind of retail media network, or they would rather partner with large media sales organizations like Ströer, Goldbach, like independent ones that are off from the first-party data usage and become a more relevant supplier with first-party data, or rather the retail space sticks together and team up?
Should I take it?
Yeah.
I think it's a bit too early. I mean, it happens in both ways, right? We do have retail aggregation solutions that happen. We also have solution providers that offer outsourcing of sales as an option. So I think retailers that are too small, at the end of the day, it comes down to unit economics, right? So I think the advantage of doing direct sales for a retailer makes sense only if you hit economies of scale. The advantage of having your own solution, having your own sales team, is that you're able to save on the 30% commission that you would give to a solution provider and an outsourced sales team. So unless there is confidence in terms of hitting that economies of scale, I think the approach for smaller retailers would be to either go to an aggregation layer where they act as publishers or they outsource sales to companies that do sales. It could also be a hybrid approach. It doesn't have to be binary, right? Because building the right sales team is not going to happen overnight. It does take quite a while to get the right resources to train them on your solutions. So the approach could also be where retailers start with some of these, aggregation platforms or sales outsourcing, and then they start building the sales muscle once they figure out what it takes to scale advertising. So that's pretty much the trend we're seeing. But I think it's still a little too early to say where it goes.
And one point I would like to add to that is that the most important thing then is that you maintain a relevancy on your own side from your own ads, that you really make sure that also if another sales team is helping you or if you're connected to many more DSPs, you make sure that any ad is shown on your website is as relevant as possible for your, to maintain your best customer experience.
Can you give any numbers? What percentage of your revenue is provided by the retail media?
You mean a percentage of my advertising revenue through direct sales?
At Delivery Hero, like 1% extra revenue for Delivery Hero? Or?
No,
the revenue on Delivery Hero, I think. You mean, right?
You mean the advertising revenue as a percentage for... I'll give you where we want to head towards, right? Not where we are, because I don't know if I can share it. I think for us, where we typically see, at least on the CPG front, investing is anywhere close to, or where we want to get to is about 10% of GMV, right? I think we've seen that 8 to 10% is typically what CPGs would invest as part of their GMV on the retail platforms for media use cases. And obviously there are factors, right? There are factors whether you're able to drive ROAS, whether there are factors whether you have sufficient media on the platform to actually capture this, whether you're able to provide CPGs with the right data insights to then, sort of make their media spends effective. And if all of these factors fall in place, I would expect CPGs to invest close to 8 to 10% of their GMV as media investments.